Great, it's 1 o'clock. Here we go. Welcome back from recess. This is the Ways and Means Committee continuing our hearing on the ordinance of estimates for fiscal 22. I am Ryan Dorsey, member of the committee, filling in here for Chairman Eric Costello. We are here at this time to hear from Live Baltimore.
Of course, anything public.
Who is that?
Councilwoman Porter,
Hold on. Oh, yes.
can you please mute yourself? Thank you. We are here for Live Baltimore. I'm sorry, Marguerite, what is our stop time for this? Is it 1:30?
Yes, 1:30.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to just try to quickly read off the names of the committee members and other council members who are here. We have Councilman Robert Stokes, member of the committee, Councilmember James Torrance, Councilmember Christopher Burnett, member of the committee, Councilwoman Odette Ramos, Councilwoman Felicia Porter, Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, member of the committee, Councilmember Yitzi Schleifer. We have other representatives from the mayor's office. We have Natasha Mayhew and Nina Themelis from the council president's office, Nikki Thompson, Matthew Stegman, and representatives from the finance and BBMR department and BBMR, Mara James, Bob Senemy, Mira Green. And we are going to hear today from Annie Milley from Live Baltimore. Annie, if you could keep it brief, maybe 5-6 minutes. We only have a half an hour, and then we'll get to some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman and Mr. Chair, for this meeting. My name is Annie Milley. I am the Executive Director of Live Baltimore, and I am very pleased to have the opportunity to be here today talking about our fiscal year 22 budget. I am joined on WebEx by Live Baltimore's Director of Operation, Ms. Julie French. So thank you for being here, Julie. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Live Baltimore and what we do. Live Baltimore is the city's residential marketing organization. And what that means is we are responsible for promoting all 278 of the city's beautiful and diverse communities to residents. We work with both renters and homeowners with a special focus on homeownership because there are so many wonderful incentive programs to encourage the purchase of a home here in Baltimore City. I'm going to talk a little bit about two performance measures that are highlighted on the slide today. First, I'm going to talk about an output, the number of attendees at Live Baltimore's events. The number of attendees at Live Baltimore's events is an important indicator in that the more folks who come to our events and get to experience Baltimore City's beautiful neighborhoods, the more of those folks we are likely to influence to purchase a home here. And so you can see we exceeded our target in FY20, which was no small feat. When the pandemic hit and everything shut down, I have to really brag on my team. Our incredible small but mighty team turned around in 4 weeks and converted our biggest event of the year, our spring trolley tour, into our first ever completely virtual event. Not only did that event go off nearly without a hitch, but we had double the attendance that we expected at an in-person event. And that success with our virtual events has continued. I think our ability to execute these events and to just maintain our programming throughout the pandemic is a real success story. I also want to highlight an effectiveness measure. I said that the number of attendees at our events influences how many folks we can encourage to purchase homes in the city. And for at least the past 8 years that I've been at Live Baltimore, we know that we have had at least 1 in 7 Baltimore City homebuyers work with our team in a way that's meaningful enough to track them. So very pleased to help out that many of the city's homebuyers. But because we are a citywide organization and we take that charge very seriously, we like to pay attention to the percent of city neighborhoods where those homebuyers are making a purchase. And again, in FY20, we've exceeded that performance measure. influencing purchases in 80% of the city's neighborhoods. And we're just incredibly proud of our ability to do that. So we are continuing in FY21 to have success with our fully virtual programming, continuing to find new and innovative ways to show off Baltimore City's residential neighborhoods, and continuing to have a strong influence across many of the city's markets. So I will end my presentation, which is very brief there, and take any questions. So thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Annie. I would be remiss if I did not mention that Annie is a constituent. It's always it's a privilege of mine to get to represent her, for better or for worse, however she may see it. And also that, as I recall, Annie is the first director in this position who is not a Southeast Baltimore resident. It is really great to have Northeast Baltimore represented while also having other really wonderfully civically engaged staff still there who live around Southeast, like Kim Wiggins and folks. And I think you're doing a great job. I hear so many people really thankful for the trolley tours. It's been remarkable that you've been able to continue to do these kind of neighborhood tours in a virtual environment. And that it has continued to assist people above and beyond even the housing sales boom that happened over the last year. I would say to many people very unexpectedly and during this time of pandemic. And so I just thank you for what you're doing and being available when I have kind of statistical or demographic kind of questions. You're always available to me. Just thanks for continuing to do important work in the city. I did not recognize Councilmember Conway when I was introducing or recognizing everybody before, so I want to make sure I do that. And I'm going to take questions first from committee members with their hands raised on WebEx. Councilmember Stokes.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna come back. That was a hand raise I had earlier, so you can go to the next person. So I want to kind of listen in first. Thank you.
Okay, next, Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Director Milley, as well. I didn't have a question. Just want to say thank you for all you do and for your agency at marketing the city. There's been a number over the years. We've talked a lot about West Baltimore and marketing the communities along the Edmondson Avenue corridor, Frederick Avenue corridor, Howard Park, and just trying to work collaboratively to sell the neighborhoods in the city. I mean, obviously, there's always been a focus on marketing the tourism aspects of Baltimore, but if we're going to attract residents, our neighborhoods have to be livable, and we have to tell those stories. So I just want to thank you and your staff for always being willing to work with my office to sell District 8 neighborhoods in particular, but the west side and the outer neighborhoods of the city. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. I don't see any of the hands raised by any of the members of the committee, so I'm going to go to Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee, for allowing Director Milley to come on my request. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Director Milley, for coming. I think that the work of Live Baltimore, I used to be on the board, well, back in the day, and has really been great. And so can you tell us, I have two questions, but the first one is, you talk a lot about marketing the city for people to come into the city, but I believe you also have some significant work being done on retention. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. We know that it's very important to attract residents here, but it's also incredibly important to retain the residents that we have. And I will just say a couple of things. One, it is the majority of folks who purchase homes in the city are already living here. So they are living here and they are probably renting here and they are deciding that they like it so much that they want to purchase a home. And so it's really important that we are retaining residents when they're making any type of new housing decision, whether that's to move into a new rental, to purchase their first home, or to purchase their second home after leaving the one that they're currently in. So that's, I think, the first thing I want to highlight. The other thing I want to highlight is that we know that we lose too many residents with children from the city. And so one of the things that I've been working on for the entire time I've been at Live Baltimore are efforts to retain families with children. We now have on our team a full-time school navigator. So already mentioned Kim Wiggins, who is a resident of the Patterson Park neighborhood. She is available 7 days, well, really 5 days, 7 days a week. She's available pretty much 24/7 to help families with children answer questions about their education options and about neighborhoods that they might want to either, whether they're making that next housing move inside the city or whether they are moving into the city from someplace else. She's really there to help them. So we provide a lot of services to existing residents. We can help them with anything. We have a ground rent expert on our team who can answer a lot of ground rent redemption questions. We're helping folks who are already here to become homeowners, and we're helping those residents with children navigate their school options. So that's a little bit about our retention work.
Thank you. I pointed this out when Visit Baltimore was here, but it seems totally skewed to me that the majority of our revenue for our city budget comes from property taxes. And yet we're not funding Live Baltimore the same way that we're funding Visit Baltimore. I'm a fan of Visit Baltimore too. But we need to figure out, and maybe you can tell us, you know, it's very important to me. I mean, Visit Baltimore gets $1 million more than you do, if not more. And it's providing a big service, but the revenue generated is a fraction of what basically your activities do, is generate revenue to bring in the tax base and to keep the tax base here. So tell me, what could you do with another $1 million to be able to continue the work that you're doing, but also to continue to keep and also attract more and essentially building our tax base? What more can you do?
Well, thank you, Councilwoman, for the question, and I appreciate the observation about residents' contribution to our city. So at Live Baltimore, we say that residents are our city's greatest assets, and we don't just believe that that's true, we know that it's true. Residents contribute the greatest share of the city's general fund revenue. They contribute far more than 50%, which is far more than any other payer type. And we know that through an analysis that was conducted by the finance department in recent years. So they are contributing the greatest share of our revenue. They are supporting businesses in just about every sector. They're supporting tens of thousands of jobs, many of those jobs in our neighborhoods. So they are incredibly important. And so I just appreciate, first and foremost, the recognition of the value of residents to our city. With regard to tourism, you know, Al Hutchinson has also shared with me that the majority of folks who visit our city are coming to visit people who, family and friends who live here. So coming to visit residents. And so I would say that our fates with Visit Baltimore are inextricably tied. We need each other to succeed. So I think that that's, you know, what I want to say about that. Yes, we are, I'm sure that everyone who's come before you has said that they could use more funding, and we certainly could use more funding. We know that we are by far the smallest of the city's promotional or economic development organizations. We have the smallest amount of funding. We have the smallest staff, and I believe we have the lowest salaries of any of those organizations. So I would say if we had a little bit more funding, I think we do a lot with a little. We're funded at just, it's $600,000 that we are very grateful for, but of course, you know, could use more than that. And so what would we do if we had additional funding? We would support additional staff functions that were desperately needed in our organization. We only have 8 staff members. So we're marketing the entire city with only 8 folks, and many of them are fulfilling multiple roles. We don't have for example, we don't have a single support staff member in our organization. I don't have a scheduler. I don't have an assistant. We don't have a single shared assistant for our organization. So there's just many functions that our staff are filling, and we could use some additional support there. But I think more than anything, if we had the funding, I would just love to be able to reach every prospective resident with our marketing. We know that it would cost at least $500,000 per year to reach every possible mover just in our metro region, so just in our surrounding counties. And that would be just with digital media. And in a good year, we have about 20% of that. So we are not telling the story of Baltimore to every prospective mover in our region, let alone in Washington, D.C. or other areas right now. And I know that we have such potential to tell that story to more folks, and that would be our number one priority if we had additional funding to do so.
Thank you. And your marketing materials and the messaging has always been great. So we want to amplify that to get more people to our great city. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And I'll just say, it sounds like Visit Baltimore maybe needs you a little bit more than you need them. I'll go on to Councilmember Torrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Milley. I have questions related to equity because I have the historic red line communities. And often I hear from my community association presidents that their neighborhoods aren't highlighted enough. My question is, because when I review your annual report, it mentions equity only 3 times, but never discusses what your equity outcomes are or your objectives are. I see that, and it's buried within your website about equity. It's not front and center on your front page. So I just want to know, what is your stance on equity, and when will we see some outcomes for equity?
Sure. Well, equity is incredibly important to our organization. I think you're going to really like our new strategic plan that is about to be approved at our July meeting, where equity was a theme that is throughout the entire document, and we talk about it at length. So I would say we're thinking about equity in a number of different ways. We've adopted a framework used by the planning department that allows us to consider a number of different aspects of equity when we are planning and executing our programs. So I can talk a little bit about how we think about delivering our services. We are thinking about who has been historically left out of the opportunity for homeownership when we are purchasing all of our advertising. So to the extent possible, we are really over-targeting those folks who have been left out of the opportunity to purchase a home when we are promoting home buying events and when we're promoting events about homeownership education. So that's one thing that we're doing. We're thinking about access to our events. So when our events are held in person, we are choosing locations where they are close to mass transit, where they are accessible by bike. So we're not leaving folks out when they, are just when they have a car. You don't need a car to get to one of our events. That's always been really important. And part of the reason that we do bus tours is because we don't want folks to be left out if they aren't able to drive around the city. So that's really important to us. I shared as one of our performance measures, we want to be influential on a broad diversity of the city's neighborhoods. And so we take that very seriously. And so I would just be, very proud to share with you where the folks that we work with are purchasing homes, to talk about in more detail where our events are taking folks. So I think that, all of those things are the way that I would answer that question. And I think that for a city that has such a painful history of redlining, where we have had so much discrimination, where we are a majority Black city surrounded by not majority Black counties, promoting our city and promoting opportunities to live in our neighborhoods is critically important, and is critically important to equity in the region. But I'll be so thrilled to talk to you about how we discuss equity in our new strategic plan, and would be glad to do that. I can also talk about the demographics of the folks that we serve if that's meaningful to you.
Yeah, I saw the demographics, and then from there there are more questions, because what I'm finding is that a lot of persons of color who are millennials are entering into the rental market and not entering into the housing market. So one of the things I've learned is that we don't really have an entry level housing market like other cities such as DC and New York that have condominiums in their homes, and we haven't prioritized that as a city. So that's why I'm more interested in what does equity look like for your organization, but also is there any way that we can market to start getting people interested in what the interest is to have an entry level market too? Because that's one of the things I'm concerned about is that we haven't created an entry level market. So everything you're saying is right on par. I just wanted to make sure that like it wasn't apparent where the equity was. Thanks.
Sure. Well, if I could just address a couple of things. First of all, I want to say I think renters are really important, and so I always want to lift up renters because I think sometimes renters are sort of looked at as second-class citizens in discussions, and some people choose to be renters, and we really welcome renters into our city. Renters become homeowners in our city. More than anybody else. And so I really want to lift up and say that renters are important. We want to see renters here in our communities. In terms of your comment about having an entry-level market, I'd love to, again, share more information with you about the housing market within Baltimore City and also about the housing market regionally. But we are the most affordable county in our metro region by far. Our median home price last year was about $180,000, and that's over $100,000 less than our closest priced county, which is Baltimore County. When you get into other surrounding counties, you're talking about a median home price that's approaching $600,000. I mean, DC's median home price, $600,000. As you get closer to DC, those home prices are high as well. So we are by far the most affordable county in our metro region, and we are the place where so many more entry-level buyers can afford to buy here. Actually, those sort of young single entry-level buyers, this is the place that they can afford, and that's one of the things we really need to celebrate and talk about, to more folks and lift that up for them, because in our surrounding counties, if it's difficult to purchase a home here, where it's significantly more affordable, it is even more difficult to purchase a home in any of our surrounding counties.
I agree, but I add the caveat that in this city we have a wealth gap, and the question is for persons of color who have student loan debt, who are disproportionately impacted by the student loan debt industry, they don't have that entry level at all times because of the income or the loan capacity. So I'm thinking, how do we create those opportunities for them? And I've seen the work on the state level to address it now, but I'm thinking about it here in Baltimore, where we have a large population of professional persons of color who can't really afford to enter the level because of the debt. So I'm thinking more broadly, because when we think about persons who more likely will have families and invest in our city, who invest here, that's a population we haven't figured out how to capture or be able to market to. Because at the end of the day, is that if we're going to grow Baltimore or to grow neighborhoods, we're going to have to find niches where people can be identified. I agree, but I think we need to take it a step further.
Yeah, and I also agree. I couldn't agree more. I think everything you're saying is true, and I think we need more opportunities to assist folks, especially with student loan debt. It's a major concern. So I thank you for your question and your comments.
We have 6 minutes left. I'm going to go to Councilmember Conway and ask that he keep it as brief as possible, and Annie, you as well in your response, and then I'm going to try to get back to Councilmember Stokes, a member of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be super brief. Really good to see you, Annie. We got to catch up. I'm really curious about, do we have any data on who our prospective buyers are? If we're able to disaggregate that data and understand where our potential buyers are coming from, what their needs are, I'm really just curious about that. I know I'm really interested in looking on building on the middle neighborhoods concept, and really appreciate a lot of the work that your team has been doing to help us do that. So do we have that data? Is that something that you could share?
We do. We have more information about our prospective market than ever before. And I'll just say we were very grateful with the council support. We received funding to complete the first ever analysis of Baltimore City's residential market potential, which was completed just very recently and released. And I'm going to keep my answer brief, but I would just say that we know that our prospective residents are most likely to be younger folks without children. We know that they are going to be of mixed incomes. Many of them are going to need a lot of purchase support. Some of them are going to be coming in closer to the area median income. So a wide diversity of folks. We know, again, that our prospective resident is primarily already here. So we really need to, every time somebody's making a decision to move, we need to be winning them over when they're making that decision. But I would love to talk to you more about the great research work that we've recently completed and how that can inform all of our campaigns moving forward.
That would be great. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Annie, how you doing, first of all?
Wonderful. Good to see you.
My question is for those potential racism in Black and brown neighborhoods. How are you talking those particular communities? Because in my district, I'm sure some of my other colleagues can say that, I always talk about legacy renters to become legacy homeowners. And are we recruiting that piece and making sure there's some funding so they can actually have a down payment and all that kind of stuff? And do you have data to show that where you going into these neighborhoods where we know that it's intentional racism in Black and brown neighborhoods? Where's the recruitment? It's very unfortunate that all the city agencies now get an equity officer when they know the intentional racism been going on a long time. But the second question is, one person in your office is the equity person. How can they do the work if you don't have the full staff? Because all these agencies have one person as an equity officer. If you don't have a staff, I don't know how that works. Can you explain, do you need more funding for staff in all agencies? Because every agency I hear, all they say is they have one person as an equity officer. So are you looking to hire more staff to actually make that person that work in your office working on the equity piece, making sure it works?
Well, thank you, Councilman, for those questions. I think I would first answer and say, I don't think that in our organization we look at equity as just one piece. And I think we really look at equity as everything, knowing what we know about this city and its history. So I have an expectation for all of our team members. So there's 8 of us. So all 8 of us have to understand what equity is. They have to understand the lens through which we're going to spend our money, the lens through which we're going to execute our programs and plan our programs. And so I have a high expectation of all of our staff. So there might be one equity officer who's reporting back or putting out reports, but every single one of us is required to be thinking about equity and well-versed in equity and well-versed in our city's history as well. We have worked with a consultant to help design trainings for both our staff and our board members to look at where the disparities have been in the past and how we can be a part of creating solutions in the future. So that's, I think, the first thing that I would, the first way that I would answer that question. With regard to your question about legacy residents and legacy renters, we know that renters become homeowners in our city. We work with many folks who have rented here for decades. So older adults who are becoming homeowners for the first time. Those are some of our favorite customers to work with. So we think that those are very, very important folks, and we want to see them be able to make investments here and to build generational wealth by owning a home here. So that's very important to us. And we're not the only ones who are out there getting those folks information about their opportunity to become homeowners. We have many community partners who are doing that, and we're pleased to partner with many in the community. I think, including your office, including CDCs, including the Department of Housing and Community Development. So it's really I would say, group effort there.
And real quick, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up. I would love to work with your office on that legacy renter, legacy homeowner together, because we're doing some stuff in like 5 different community associations I'm working with, and we working with deed on a house. When somebody got parents and grandparents, and unfortunately there's nobody named on that deed, that goes to a whole different kind of process. So just look for email from our office. We'd like to sit down and talk to you with 5 other community leaders, so how we can work with your office also.
That's great. And we'd love to talk to your constituents about the opportunities to get down payment and closing cost assistance so that they can purchase a home. We come out and make those presentations all the time. We'd love to work with you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We all, I think, obviously really appreciate the work you're doing. I saw that Chairman Costello just came back into the chambers. Thanks to your camera. Oh, there he goes again. I think we're going to close this up and get ready for the next session. Thank you so much, Annie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take a very brief recess here and then reconvene in a second. Thanks.
Thank you.